What is going on, miners, and welcome back to the Hobbyist Miner channel. Well, today I am joined once again from Joseph Armeanio from the Ergo Foundation. Welcome, Joseph.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So it's been about 7 days, guys, and about 7 days ago, to recap, we sat down with Joseph here and we were talking about the challenge that we were running into with the hash rate to difficulty scenario, where hash rate was slowly coming down, but difficulty for mining Ergo had stayed the same. And at that point, we had talked about how we needed to wait for, I think, was it 8 epochs at that point to go ahead and cycle through. And that was putting us around the 24th to 25th based off of the hash rate. And we kind of hit that date since last we had spoken. So since we hit that time period, kind of give us the rundown. What happened with difficulty? And then kind of give us what has transpired, because the last several days there has been a boatload of information coming out from the Ergo team. So let's jump back to the 25th. Give us the rundown as what happened with the difficulty.
Well, I'll be honest with you. At this point, days are a little bit blurry, but when we did roll over the difficulty adjustment, the difficulty did start to drop, right? And with the current implementation, it will drop again in the future. But we've had a lot of talks with our community in terms of the difficulty adjustment. We built a playground for testing kind of optimizations, make it a little bit more reactive. Basically, that led to the creation of EIP-37. What that does is it compresses the epoch length down to 128 blocks. It still adjusts over an 8 epoch period, but it's 8 times faster. And then we put in a cap of 50%, in case there's that type of spike. Now, it is true that, when you compress it and you look at like a percentage growth, it kind of creates like an exponential curve. So we actually didn't hit 50% last time. We're in the upper 40s, but
wow,
we put in kind of a cap just in case there's any type of spikes. We released that EIP two client versions of it, 4.0.1, which has the new difficulty adjustment that miners would need to activate by putting setting in, which would be like 6 plus equals plus 2400. And then the other one is 4.0.101, which is auto voting. It's already pre-programmed. And basically what that's going to do is once we roll over block 844,800, which I think right now we're 844.2 and change, right? I haven't actually looked at our Explorer in a little bit. So we've got about 600 blocks to go before the voting period is active. That reference client has a mechanism built in where it scans the chain every 128 blocks and collects votes. We set the threshold for this at 256 blocks. Now, in Ergo, we have a governance thing where it requires 90% consensus, right? That comes in at about 232 blocks. So it's going to scan basically every 128 blocks and collect votes. If that threshold breaks, it will automatically update. It'll automatically fork and, kind of plug in that new EIP with the new diff adjustment, and then off we go. If not, then we do have a prolonged voting period, right? 90% governance is not easy, right? That's pretty high threshold in general. And you also have the potential for some external actor to attack, right? And so how we deal with that is we have a very long voting windows. In this case, it's almost, I'd say normal block times like 4 or 5 months, where the goal is if an EIP comes together and the community can vote on it, they have time to come to consensus, right? Governance is messy. They can fight, vote, change their vote, and we'll see how things float, over that long period. So if someone were to try to miner hop and, delay the vote, they would push us towards a difficulty adjustment, number one. And number two, they would you can't really miner hop and vote at the same time. So it kind of mitigates that attack to some degree.
Wow. Well, there's a lot to unpack there, and so I'm going to kind of go pick this apart a little bit to ask some questions that I think fellow miners like myself would have in mind. So, you said we're about 600 blocks away. When are you, until that occurs? When are you guys estimating that that would occur?
Oh, I think like 4 days.
4 days.
Right now
Wow.
the chain
Okay.
I think the chain is a little slow right now, so
Okay.
I'd have to do math to actually give you like a clear
Sorry,
estimation.
my dog was like trying to push through my doorway here. I was like, oh God. So I was trying to help out the dog. But okay. So about 4 days. That makes a ton more sense. So that being said, we have 4 days, and then something else you had mentioned in there, which I don't think is as clear. So I thought I'd ask is, how do miners participate in the voting, and who all is
Sure.
involved in the voting?
Sure. So miners run the Ergo network in terms of the voting mechanism, and how that's done is block-based voting. That's some combination of hash rate distribution to certain reference clients with luck, right? Because you always have luck. I mean, that's always just a part of proof of work. So, you can say, okay, if 90% of the overall hash rate is pointed towards reference clients that are voting in favor, we can assume, within whatever threshold of luck is, that it would pass. But, luck is what it is. It's kind of a little wild card in the voting mechanism. So it has to do with blocks. So if I mine a block from a reference client 4.0.101, the mechanism that's scanning the votes is looking to see what reference client hit that block.
So would the reference client be, from a miner's perspective, the pool that they're mining to?
Yeah, it would be the node version, basically. So, what we've been doing is going throughout the ecosystem and saying, okay, well, this is out there. And so, everyone needs to at least run 4.0.1. That way, if the network does fork, they update with it, right?
Yeah.
And, if a lot of pools that said, hey, we just want to support this, we built 4.0.101 that has support built in.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I've noticed on Twitter over the last few hours that your group has really been just announcing, like, these are the different pools that are supporting it and such. So that makes a lot more sense. So as a miner, if you're in agreement with this, you want to be mining to the pools that are in agreement as well, so that if things happen with luck, as you talked about, then that would be like a yes vote. There isn't actually like a website or something you're going to vote. It all goes through the actual mining process. So that makes a ton more sense. So jumping back to an explanation of exactly what is in EIP-37. So you talked about a few things there. One of the things you talked about was the block adjustments going down to 128. And then you also talked about the difficulty can only rise 50% at a time. It sounds very similar to me as like a lot of like traditional markets where something can drop 20% and then it's kind of like halted. In this situation, it sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to speak more from a miner's perspective, that difficulty can only rise 50% per every 8 epochs. Is that correct? Okay, good to know. Awesome there. So in a situation in the future, then we're only going to see the difficulty will be less drastically affecting mining, but it could still go up though. It could still go through the roof like it did before. It's just at a slower pace. Is that accurate?
Yeah, essentially we're trying to get faster adjustments to where we don't have same spike we've seen that created this difficulty. And I think the Ergo Foundation itself is going to create a grant and go through what Bitcoin Cash has done, what Dash did, with Monero's done, what Zcash has done, and try to do some research, see if there's that's actually an area where the amount of research in this space is lacking in my opinion. And it's kind of funny because it's so critical to proof of work, but Yeah, I think that's an area that we're going to look into and pursue because ultimately, I think every miner wants, just a fair shake, fair game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, I
if
think
we can build that out to where, it's as fair as possible, which is actually kind of difficult to understand even. I think people would support that. So we'll start some research and development and see what comes from that.
okay. So then EIP-37 is passed,
Mhm.
everything is approved, everything changes. So at that point, do miners have to do anything? Does anything have to happen from a mining perspective, at least for the home miner?
No,
Okay.
that basically what happens is they run the reference client and they can, run yes or no. Doesn't
Yeah.
miners vote, right?
Yep.
I We're neutral in terms of like what they're going to do.
Hmm.
Um, Basically, there's a scanning mechanism that's checking votes, and if that threshold is broken, the chain forks. And
Okay.
so, what do? They keep running the same reference client, and we go back to looking towards the Node 5.0 and scalability solutions, and you know, onward we go.
I like it. So then in that regard, everything passes. We're all good. We're down the road here. Ergo has gone ahead and switched. What expectations should miners have for, and I guess I'm trying to simplify this, is
Mhm.
now versus then. So what are some bullet
Sure.
point
So,
items of the kind of the two so they understand?
sure. The quickest thing to look at is we're compressing the adjustment rate, so it's 8 times faster.
Okay. That's great.
So yeah. So what that will do is, just create faster, uh, adjustments when there's big changes, and then we've put in a cap that if we see some massive spike, because there is a ton of hardware out there that's sitting on the sideline, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Uh, you know,
ton. Yep.
yeah, if some of that plugs in real quick, we have at least some mechanism to kind of keep up, and we also have a faster adjustment to, you know,
Mhm.
just try to balance the network.
No, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think as miners, what we saw after the Ethereum merge was just hash rate and difficulty through the roof, which made sense. And then after that, hash rate started to drop and difficulty remained the same. And that was the big like, what's going on? So Ergo is now putting it out there to the miners to vote upon it through their mining capabilities on adjusting that to 8 times faster. So that would at least occur. It's not going to be instant. It's not going to be, what people, unfortunately, home miners and a lot of the miners out there instantly default to the Ethereum mindset. It's not going to be that. It's still going to be Ergo. It just will be 8 times faster than what it was, which will be great.
Yep.
I think it's definitely an improvement to get us in that right direction. And then I think as you and I had spoken 7 days ago, that tiered off effect is still occurring where hash rate is dropping, difficulty is coming to match it, and then our spike should not be as large. It's not like all of a sudden we're going to have thousands and thousands and thousands of miners all of a sudden swapping to Ergo again anytime soon. Like I can't imagine the worldly event that would occur like the Ethereum merge that would force it
Yeah.
for that to be such. I mean, it should be subtle adjustments, which is what is normal within an ecosystem. I think would be the way to put it. So on that note, anything else to say to GPU miners today before we let you go?
Sure. I would just say the game has changed a lot, right?
Mhm.
If you read a lot of papers about difficulty and difficulty adjustment, you kind of have two basic camps. Like the first you could call rational miners, which have a short-term duration, and they basically use their GPUs to
Mhm.
cover costs and make profit every month. And then you also have a camp of, let's call them irrational miners, which kind of use their hardware and electricity to purchase something like an options contract on the future,
Mhm.
where, if the price does go up, then they have a certain profitability threshold. And so, yeah, I think an options contract is basically the better way to look at, let's say, irrational mining. And, ETH basically, nuked the rational part of
Mhm.
mining,
Oh
right?
yeah.
But the reality is proof of work wouldn't exist without irrational mining. You
Yeah.
could never bootstrap something from zero. You could never start a project, right? So, everybody needs to manage their risks, figure out their risk reward allocation. And, you know, hopefully markets adapt, proof of work comes back, and we do get more of the rational side of mining, where I think a lot of people came in the last 2 years where rational mining was just the environment, right?
It was
And
the
it's not always
normalcy.
been that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not always been that way. For I guess for a long time it kind of flipped back and forth, and you know was a little bit more unstable. And yeah, over the last 2 years, you know, we hit a period where everything was profitable. It was just a matter of how profitable, and you know that was golden days. I hope we build to that in the future.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's a great way to end things off. So hopefully soon we'll see us move over. I'm hoping in that regard that will be where my vote is going, based off of where I'm mining to EIP-37. So once again, Joseph, thank you very much for joining us today. I do appreciate it. Guys, if you guys want to see more videos just like this with the developers from Ergo, please go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below on your thoughts and feelings on the current state of Ergo and the direction that it's going. For myself and Joseph, thank you guys very much for joining us today. We'll see you guys next time.